Hello, everybody. Tonight is a very different night for sure. We got a different setup here, a different angle, but it's still the same community coming together. This was also a pre-recorded live. So right now I'm live, but the interview that took place with NFL, basically this standout in the NFL, Eric Wood, just an amazing, amazing human being. This actually just wrapped up a few minutes ago. Now, here's the thing. The reason why, as you're going to learn, is because he's a great dad and he wants to put his kids to bed. And sometimes the hours of bourboning kind of get in the way of being a dad sometimes, especially when they're at the ages that Eric's kids are. And I fully understand that. Now, what I want to tell you as we begin this night is that I will actually be in the chat. I'll be in the chat. I'll also be adding people's stuff to the constant conversation that we're having. So anything that you have that you want to get out there, just keep plugging it away. I'll also be able to pluck the what you're drinking tonight and put it up there. So be telling me what you are drinking, what you are doing throughout the night. I will be able to interact with you a little bit more. And also, guys, this interview just absolutely awesome, especially if you are a sports fan. If you are a football fan, if you love the NFL, if you are a fan of the University of Louisville, you are going to really enjoy tonight's interview. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but of course I was there and I was sipping bourbon along with him. Now I'll tell you, before this interview I had an interview with Chase Rice, and that will be this week's podcast. Chase is an enormous country music star. He's been doing stuff with Garth Brooks. He's one of these guys that he's there, but he's on his way to going there. So he's an amazing artist, just a great human being. We had a great talk. And also, I snuck in a little bit of illegal moonshine to him. So most people, I send the really good stuff, which I did to Chase. I did. But I also sent him some illegal moonshine. Ooh. So it'd be interesting for you all to see how that played out. Now tonight, again, Eric Wood, such a gentleman, such a great father, such a bourbon fan. I mean, he's going to tell you a story or two about bringing bourbon and sipping bourbon at during the NFL. Now, Eric is still very involved in the NFL. He works for the Buffalo Bills as a color commentator. He works for the ACC network. I think this is a guy that in 10 years we could see him on Monday Night Football. So Eric Wood is a rising star in the media world. But we're going to talk a little bit about his football career. And he's also got a pretty good palate. So don't rest on him as we are going to take a look at tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the questions, see if we have any questions here. It looks like we got some folks. Wow, really active chat tonight. Glad to see you all going. Bradley, so that is called Tempted. It's by, he asked, what's the music channel I've had playing. I actually get my music from a royalty-free website. That means that the musicians put their music up there for people like myself to purchase and use. I have a service called artlist.io, and you can go there and you can purchase music to use for videos and podcasting. So that is where I get it. And the band that you constantly hear are called the Hazelnuts, and they are quite special. So I'm going to tell you the format of tonight. So the format tonight is all about determining what is the better brand, Booker's or Stagg Jr. Now, you may think to yourself, well, that is not a very good comparison, but I will challenge you to say that Booker's and Stagg Jr. are always being compared to one another. as is anything at that level of proof and that availability. So what I have found is that I have gotten a lot of questions over the years. Which do I prefer more, Stagg Jr. or Booker's? And I'll be honest with you, I go back and forth. Now, if I had this show with my wife, it wouldn't be a competition. My wife is such a Booker's fan, I literally have to hide the bottles from her. Otherwise, they won't make a week after I buy them or they're sent to me. So, Booker's is hands down my wife's favorite bourbon for just about everything outside of Old Forester 1920. In fact, that's the kind of the household debacle right now. Is it Old Forester 1920 or is it Booker's? And they're about 10 proof points difference. But Eric actually has a really, really good palate. He's picked some barrels in the past. And so I brought him in to help me decide what of the two is the better. Stay tuned. This episode is about an hour long. I'm going to take a look and see if we have any questions here before I press play on the interview. All right, so I'm going to go straight to it. I hope you enjoy this. I will be around afterward to answer any questions, but please meet my new friend, Eric Wood. Good, man. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, Fred.
Well, first of all, we gotta give a shout out to Kyle Rudolph for making the introduction. He brags about you like you're like his best friend.
Yeah, so. He is my best friends. We both attended Elder High School in Cincinnati. We both have Cincinnati roots. Now I'm in Prospect, Kentucky, outside of Louisville, just like you are yourself. And I appreciate Kyle making that introduction. How did you and Kyle get connected?
We got introduced through Noah McMahon, who does a lot of philanthropy work with Kyle, and just kind of hit it off. You know, I mean, Noah's one of these guys. Do you know Noah at all?
Yeah, I do. He's great.
Big heart, just a big loving guy. Now here's a question. Now I didn't know that offensive linemen could be good buddies with like the defensive side like this. So what's is there something deeper here that was he on the offensive line at some point? Or I'm sorry, he's a tight end.
Yeah, Kyle played tight end, so he played offense as well. I always joke Kyle's only a couple double cheeseburgers away from being an offensive lineman, and he'll joke back that if he was a tackle, he'd probably make more money. So but we've been close for a long time.
Now the tight end is a position in the game where some of them can block, some of them just can't. Kyle seems like he can do it all.
Yeah, and that makes him extremely valuable. The fact that he is a receiving threat, but he's also 6'6", 250, 260 pounds. He can move people off the ball as well. That's allowed him to bring tremendous value. That's part of the reason he's heading into his 10th year of his career and still playing at an extremely high level.
You had a great career as well. You made the Pro Bowl. You became a fan favorite with the Buffalo Bills, as you did here in Louisville, of course. And I know that you faced some injuries there toward the end of your career. Would you like to still be playing if you could?
Oh, I would love to. I love playing football. And I went to school at the University of Louisville and started 49 straight games, never got hurt in my college career. Then I get to Buffalo and I break my leg in half my rookie year with a Joe Theismann leg break. My second year, I got a high ankle sprain, missed a couple games, had another surgery after that season stemming from that broken leg. My third year, I did ACL, PCL, lateral meniscus. My fourth year, tore my MCL, and then had a surgery after that year. That was a cleanup from the ACL knee. And so I had this terrible string of luck. And then I signed a contract extension before my fifth year in the NFL. And it was an incentive-based deal because I'd been hurt so much. I said, well, just pay me, and I'll take a bet on myself that I'll be playing a lot more snaps coming up. I then went on to play 52 consecutive games, which is the most for any active center in the NFL at the time. Break my other leg on Monday Night Football in Seattle in 2016, and which if you if you think about it, you got Monday Night Football. So we fly back through the night, 6 hours to Buffalo, and I fly back commercial with the team with my leg propped up on some luggage in the aisle. That wasn't a whole lot of fun. And then in 2017, I was the only player on the Buffalo Bills to play 100% of the snaps. And after the season, I find out that I have a career-ending neck injury that I've been playing with for a majority of that season. So, yeah, it rocked my world, and I wasn't ready to hop into a new career. I would have probably played till the wheels fell off, and this year would have put me through year 11. I would have still been under contract with the Buffalo Bills. They had a great year this year, made a playoff run again, ended up losing to Houston, but the future is bright for the Bills. And, I'm a Christian, and I believe God's got me right where he wants me, and we'll see where we go from here.
You bleed Buffalo Bills blue now. You're like, that's like your team, kind of like Kyle's team is Minnesota. And you got, people don't necessarily always think about the NFL level players being loyal to the teams they're with. They see them kind of going around a free agency and all that. But you really, in your core, you're still a Buffalo Bill.
No doubt. And at this point, I'm working for the Buffalo Bills again.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah. I'm part of their media team now. And so I do work for them in some capacity. But they're the only team I played for, too. And I played up there for 9 years. We had a house up there in Buffalo. We have lifelong friends from our neighbors to people around the community to people with the organization. So whether I remained working with them or not, I was going to be a Buffalo Bills fan and still root for the organization. But now that I am working for them again, it makes it a lot easier.
All right. Now, you got to tell me, when you were playing, did you drink bourbon on the road?
On the road, actually, occasionally coming back from games, we would. When Rex Ryan was the head coach of Buffalo, the oldest, I believe, 8 players on the team, or the most experienced 8 players on the team, got to take the first 2 rows of first class, so 8 of us up there. And when I would get to the plane, the stewardess would always have, at the time, I think they were serving makers on the plane, and she'd have a makers and water and a solo cup, so it didn't necessarily it wasn't obvious that I was drinking up there in first class, but I had the very first seat, so no one would pass me, because when you came on the plane, first class was to your left, everyone else was back to the right, so I was the furthest one up, so no one ever passed me, and I would have a bourbon on my way back from most away games. Nice.
And when you were at home, did you have like a celebratory drink at home after the game?
After home games, we had a tradition. We would go out to the parking lot and we would have a couple beers and wait for the traffic to die out. And now that I'm watching this Last Dance documentary, watching Michael Jordan drink Miller Lights in the training room after games, kind of makes me feel a little bit better about me having a couple beers in the parking lot after games. And then we would always go to the same Italian restaurant called Elio Di Paolo's after every game. A bunch of Bills guys have been doing it ever since back in the Jim Kelly days when they made those Super Bowl runs, but just an awesome family Italian restaurant. And we'd go there all the time, and whether it was a bourbon or a wine or a beer, we would generally unwind, because everyone unwinds in different ways, but when you're all in and you prepare so hard all week for a game, you got to hit the reset button and let yourself chill out. And I was always a guy that had to try to keep weight on throughout his career. So I would try and eat very healthy because I didn't want the inflammation, and I didn't want to feel like crap throughout the week eating bad, but I had to eat so many calories. So then on Sunday nights and Monday nights, our training staff would say, all right, just consume as many calories as you can, whatever you want to eat, go ahead. Those would be your cheat days.
So you had to force yourself to be fat in some ways.
Yeah, but I did it for about 15 years, so you get in a rhythm of it. I started putting on weight my junior year of high school, and I fought to keep on weight through age 31, 32. So I was doing it for a long enough time where it wasn't miserable, because I understood what I needed to do each day, starting each day with some type of shake and some food, and ending each day before bed. Kind of the opposite of what I do now, trying to peel the weight off. But I did that for so long, you just get in a rhythm.
Well, I'm just the opposite. I don't have to work that hard to put on the weight. It just happens.
Yeah, I can do that now too.
It's a God-given talent. So I think, one of the things that gets me to put on weight is bourbon. And unfortunately, that's also my job. So I've got to drink bourbon, and it goes straight to the waistline. And it's not always easy to get off. But you're still working out. Any tips for folks at home with who consume a lot of bourbon on like how to get it off the waistline?
Yeah, I mean, it's not purely calories in versus calories out, but if you get your workout in during the day and you don't overdo it at night, you can keep the weight off. And one of my biggest issues is when I have a couple of drinks, my eating inhibitions go out the window. So on the front end of drinking, a lot of times, especially if I'm going to have more than one, I'll say, okay, this is my one cheat meal for the week. I'm going to allow myself this one. But if we do it, this quarantine has my wife coined the term quarantinis, and I feel like it's been a little bit more regular. So you got to say, okay, well, tonight we're not going to raid the pantry after this one. And if you can just kind of limit it to one or two drinks and not binge eat afterwards, which I can still do it with the best of myself from back in the day, from my playing days. If you avoid that, you can keep the weight off.
All right. I think the binge eating is where it gets me afterwards. So I think that's what I got to work on. But Eric, I brought you in to do a very, very special tasting with me. We're going to basically, we have Stagg Jr. versus Booker's, and these are two products that are both cask strength, and they both have heavy fan favorites behind them. And so we're going to pick. You and I are going to pick what we like best, and out of this grouping. And it's this is almost a playoff run here for these bourbons. So they're gonna have to show well for us tonight. So let's start with the Stagg Jr. 126.4 proof.
Okay.
And by the way, these are all high in proof. So the Booker's 2018 one is 127. The Booker's 2019 one is 125, and the other Stagg Jr. is 128.4. So
yeah, you were talking about my love for the Buffalo Bills. There's my Buffaloes, if you could see it on there on my bourbon glasses. So.
Oh wow! So that's like the mascot from the Bills. Is that the one?
It's not the charging buffalo. It's more of an actual buffalo than necessarily the charging buffalo logo. But yeah, it's on there.
So I don't want to plant it in your head to like it over Booker's, but Stagg is distilled at Buffalo Trace.
I know that. I got some buddies that are over there.
So if you may have like you may have this this effect where anytime you see Buffalo you just you automatically like it. So we're going to go ahead and taste these two Staggs, get a feel for them. Now, I didn't send you any glassware, but I'm drinking out of the Glencairn. You're drinking out of a rocks glass. That can have a little bit of an impact in terms of like how you taste. But you've been the thing is like you've been drinking bourbon for so long, you know how you like to drink it and you know how you like to taste it. So I don't need to coach you or anything like that. But if you have any questions or what to look for or whatever, please feel free to ask.
No, I'd love to hear what you're looking for, like on initial taste profile, like how you kind of get started. I've been to enough distilleries and done enough really amazing tastings through connections with Buffalo Trace and the Jim Beam Distillery, and been privileged to have been there. I actually picked out my own barrel of Blanton's about a year ago. And so that was fun to go through that process. But what exactly are you looking for on the taste?
Oh, hold on now. Do you have any bottles left of the Blantons?
I do.
Well, see, that's how this whole conversation should have started. It's like, hey, Fred, I've got an extra bottle of Blantons if you want it.
I do. And now that we made this connection, we know how close we're to each other. We'll trade some out and have us a good night some night.
I'd like that. Yeah. So the first thing I'm doing is I analyze the color. Like if I'm getting really into it and being very analytical, I analyze the color. because the moment it goes in that barrel, it clears water from your tap, and it's interacting with that wood every single day. And then I swirled around a little bit, and I bring it to my nose. And when I smell with my mouth open. And the first thing I'm looking for is I'm looking for the bad notes. So if there's like, it smells like turpentine or stinky feet or any of those kinds of things, that's what I'm looking for at first, because I don't want to drink it necessarily if it has that. And then I'm looking for those sweet smells and the spicy notes. And right off the bat, this first one, it's got like a nice like oak and like buttered popcorn note for me. And when you were focusing on like what you're tasting and like what you're getting out of something, it's really all dependent upon what you've tasted in your life and what you like to taste. And this comes down, for me, this always comes down to the memories that I have logged in a tasting. Like when I got back from Iraq, the thing that I focused on that helped me get through that shit was a process called mindfulness. And by focusing on like my palate, when I was eating something, I picked up a lot more food, a lot more flavors, than before when I was just eating. And so by focusing on every single thing that you're tasting, you're connecting to your brain, to your tongue, and you're kind of basically creating a data bank of what you've tasted. And you can find all those things in a whiskey. You just got to know to look for them. And how they hit your palate.
I didn't realize that about your story. Do you do a mindfulness or a meditation practice each morning or anything?
I should probably get back to it. But no, I feel like first thing I do is check email, then get the kids going, and then check email again, and then 6 cups of coffee, and then email, and then something else, and then an interview. That's right. My day.
But if while you're eating, you're practicing mindfulness, that's a form of meditation throughout the day. So yeah. And I say one of the best things about either meditation or being mindful when you eat or when you drink or anything else, or even just taking a stop and taking a breath, is you get off autopilot for at least a second, because everything in your day is just programmed and you hit the same routines and you think the same thoughts. And as you watch TV, as you listen to the radio, everything's coming at you and telling you how to think and feel. And I'm sure as you transition away from being a soldier, you got to control your thoughts. And so just you talking about eating and tasting, it's like, man, that's even a time when most people don't just take a second to enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, and I really do feel like, too, like if we did focus on the taste and the smell and the beauty of a product, I think we'd have a lot fewer problems in this country with alcoholism and people abusing product. But we always want to go into the extremes. It's like, don't drink or drink too much. We have we lack an appreciation for responsibility as a whole. And I feel like, these little exercises like this can help us get to a point where, we can have 2 drinks and be just fine. We can have a legit tasting of 4 and describe them and not be drunk, And so, it's my hope in doing some of these tastings with people that, we can get to a point where this becomes more mainstream, because right now, I do a lot of stuff with musicians, and a lot of these musicians will say, like, I've never smelled the whiskey before, and so, like, I hope that by introducing these methods, maybe, there's a little bit less drinking out of the bottle and more sipping.
No, that's awesome. And that's a cool mission that gives you some purpose to this. That's really cool. I'm glad to know that.
Right on. So we got our first one here. The Stagg Jr. 126.4 proof. Oh, that's good.
That is good. And smooth, despite being 126 proof, it is smooth. It definitely has the heat. And kind of on the back end of it, you get it towards the back of your tongue, a little bit in the throat, but that's good.
I get a lot of caramel in this, but I mean, it's like a salted caramel, just like a big old salted caramel just right there. Big old pretty note right there. I love that. All right, so we definitely know that. I think we're in agreement that this Stagg Jr. is going to be a contender against these two Bookers. Now let's taste the other Stagg. It's 128.4 proof. This is the latest release of the Stagg. I get a little bit more alcohol in the nose on this one than I would like. I'd like to see this a little bit more pronounced like the other one.
Yeah, I did a lighter pour on this, and I don't have a sniffer glass upstairs in my house. I probably should have gone down to my bourbon bar and got those, but I'm with you as well. I'm not picking up nearly as much of anything but the alcohol. I'm in agreement.
Yeah, it's really alcohol for. In fact, after that, I get some like sawdust, which, you know, God loves sawdust, but doesn't make me want to drink anything. Okay.
Yeah, to me that didn't nearly the flavor. Definitely not the caramel, the sweetness that the first one had.
Yeah. It's also kind of flat there toward the back.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Eric, you got a good bourbon palate. You know your stuff here. And I think you might agree with me that we have one that's an excellent pour and the other one that might be just so-so.
Right. And you would expect the 128 to have more pop to, you know what I mean? A little more pop to it. It hadn't been watered down to your traditional 80 proof or 90 proof that you're getting on one. It's funny. You talk about doing this tasting here tonight, and I was having a conversation with my neighbors on last Saturday night, one of which is the men's basketball coach at University of Louisville, one's the men's football or the football coach. And we were talking, and we got on a conversation of how do you drink your coffee? I drink them black, and they drink it with a bunch of cream and sugar. I said, well, how do you taste it? And then, then we got into bourbon and everything else. I'm like, gosh, you guys although you guys are 15 years older than me, your palates are awful. Gosh.
I mean, that's exactly right. If you're just pouring a bunch of like, sugar and creamer in there, you're not tasting anything. And I don't pour anything in my coffee.
Yeah, someone was saying that they love Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I said, you don't know what it tastes like.
Yeah. Dunkin' Donuts coffee is, of all the fast food places, it's probably about number 2 or number 3 for me. I mean, most of those, that's like a last ditch option, but if you're in a pinch, it'll work. Do you drink Dunkin'?
I do like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. When I was with the Bills, we had Tim Hortons up there, and Tim Hortons was a sponsor of the Bills. So we had Tim Hortons coffee in our facility, and we sit in meetings for a ton of time in the morning. So coffee gets consumed like crazy, and so they have to mass produce it to these humongous pots. And it could just be really inconsistent how it comes out. So a lot of times we had a Dunkin' Donuts not too far from our facility, and one of the rookies' jobs would be to go get a couple travelers of Dunkin' Donuts in the mornings. Not every morning, but we would get Dunkin' Donuts sometimes up there. But I appreciate the smaller boutique coffees, and I love trying them. But as many times as you pass a Dunkin' or a Starbucks, I'd be lying if I didn't say I enjoy grabbing a cup of coffee from either of those spots.
Well, definitely the Starbucks is the dominant of the chains that are out there. But Tim Hortons, yeah, I know Tim Hortons, the Canadian chain.
Yeah.
Of course, Buffalo's kind of like, it's like a and the Canadians go there a lot, so I can see why that one would be there. So you brought up the rookie thing. All right, so give us a good rookie hazing story that won't get you in trouble.
Honestly, with the Bills, they were pretty good the entire time. Me coming in as a first rounder, we had a first round rookie on the offensive line of myself and a second round rookie in one of our guards. So we were going to get hammered financially. And we had, a lot of times you hear about these big dinners that they'll do on the rookies, 3 of them. One during the spring, one during training camp, and one during the season. So they got us pretty good. But for me, my leadership style was always, I want to buy you a meal before you buy me a meal. And that way, when I get into you on Sunday as a captain and I say, I need you to do this, then they actually care about you a little bit, as opposed to if you just beat them down, then they look to you like, dude, you've never done anything for me. Why do I want to listen to you in this moment? And part of it is guys coming out of college are just a little bit different these days. They've been recruited since they were 14 years old by these colleges. Are used to getting catered to. And so if you just if they come in as a rookie and you beat them down, they're not used to that. And they'll shut down on you. And I actually learned from experience because I was really hard on a rookie class that we had high expectations on with the Bills one year, and they all shut down on me. So I said, I need to switch up my leadership style. But we would always have fun rookie nights where we'd go up. You mentioned Canada. Toronto was about an hour and a half away. So later in the season on a Monday night, we'd go up to Toronto, go to a super nice restaurant up there, get a private room. That would be a night we would get some nicer bourbons and whatnot. But I would always tell guys, if you go on a date and you wouldn't have your wife, and you and your wife went on a date, or you and your girlfriend went on a date, and you wouldn't buy it for the two of you, then you shouldn't expect a rookie to have to pay for it for you. Don't go order a Johnny Walker Blue. Don't go order a Pappy if that's not what you drink on a regular basis, because why do you want someone else to pay for something that you wouldn't get yourself? And I would say, I'm going to get a Blanton's. That's what I like. That's what I'll get when I'm on a date with my wife. Like, I don't mind having someone else buy me one if I know it's a free meal, because that's what I would buy myself. And so I would always try and give some perspective on that. And now that I'm heading into year 3 out of the NFL, I've heard that those traditions have stayed along to where the Bills rookie dinners aren't what these horror stories you hear around the NFL with a $50,000 meal where guys will order in bottles of King Louis, the whatever, at $2,000 a bottle or whatever it may be.
Wow. Well, that's I think that's probably a pretty effective style, and I'm glad to hear that it might stick. Now, you got I can't remember his name, but he was a guard coming out of Miami. He's the one who got in trouble with the hazing with Jonathan Martin.
Richie Incognito. So
yeah.
When you see my bottle of Blanton's, it's called the Bash Brothers Bourbon, and on our bronze label, it's a picture of me and Richie's head on it.
That's awesome. I thought, I love the offensive line. The offensive line is my favorite position, and I think it should be available in fantasy football, because I think it's the most if I were a general manager, I would get nothing but first round to third round offensive lineman picks. That would be my number one priority every year until I got the core. But he, to me, was one of the greatest guards I've ever seen play when I watched him play live. And I felt bad for him, what happened to him in Miami, but I was glad to see he rebounded and had a really nice career in Buffalo. He's still going, isn't he?
Yeah, he's with the Oakland Raiders now. He'll appreciate that. I'll tell him to tune into this and have him check it out. He'll really appreciate those words. He is a phenomenal specimen. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 6'3", 330-ish pounds. He's the fastest O-lineman on the field, maybe fastest lineman on the field at any time. He is as strong as anyone I've ever played with. He's smart. He's mean. He's the absolute total package. And I won't get into too many details on the Miami situation, but it was a tough deal. And, there's a lot of tough love in the NFL and guys that are trying to nurture these young guys along. And, and there's a lot of teasing in NFL locker rooms, and sometimes it goes too far. But even then, it's like hey, tone it down, not necessarily we're going to file for workplace harassment and the whole nine, which he had to go through.
Yeah, and he lost a year. I mean, he got suspended for a year, and he came back and was just like, you didn't know it. I mean, and seriously, like he was a bona fide badass, and also I being in the military, I guess I have a very different perspective on a lot of that stuff, but I felt bad for him. I even feel bad. I forgot his name. Made me feel, but Richie Incognito, hell of a player.
No.
And I'd be honored to share a drink with him sometime.
Yeah.
So let's so now we gotta find out, basically the design of this tasting tonight to me was a lot of ways was kind of like the offensive line, because these are like big, bold, in your face, bourbons that a lot of people go to on a regular basis, and they build their collections and their bars around them. And Stagg Jr. and Booker's are two that people go back and forth all the time. And I think right now we're about to like change some people's minds one way or another about what they should start their bar with. And I've just poured 2018-1.
Got it. Yeah, when I did a Booker's tasting at the Jim Beam Distillery, they had us taste it with chocolate because it's such a big-bodied bourbon. It pairs well with a sweet. So they had us try a piece of chocolate, or I guess we tried the Booker's, had a piece of chocolate, and then tried it again, and it was crazy what that did to the taste profile.
Yeah, well, and this is a whiskey that really is. It's, to me, it represents Jim Beam. Like this represents Booker No, Jim Beam, and it's one of the best that they have to offer. And chocolate is like my favorite thing in the world. I love chocolate. Uh-oh. Ooh, yeah. Oh, that's good. What are you getting in that bad boy?
Yeah, it's sweeter. It's similar sweetness to the first Stagg Jr. we had. Much unlike the second Stagg, a flavor that continues on with you. You get it on your whole tongue, get you in the back at the end. That's good.
So we can both say that this is better than the second Stagg that we sipped.
Yep.
You feel confident with that?
Yep.
All right. 1-1. It's going to come down to this glass right here. The 2019-1. Now, before we get into that, I'm curious. Who's the nastiest defensive lineman in the league right now?
It's generally anyone in a contract year, because D linemen like to show up and get a bunch of sacks when they're in a contract year. And I say that half jokingly. We would do scouting reports on another D line, and we would always bring up if this defensive lineman's in a contract year, because he's going to try and get sacks. He's going to try and pad his stats. He's going to go extra hard at the game. But in the NFL right now, I mean, for defensive linemen, I think Aaron Donald's the standard. J.J. Watt is excellent. He's been dinged up a bunch in recent years, but J.J. Watt is an absolute problem, a guy that you have to build a game plan around, similar to Aaron Donald. There's a bunch of really good edge rushers in the league. Both the Bosa brothers are really good young players in the league. I mean, guys like Von Miller's probably more of an outside linebacker, but Von Miller does it year in and year out. Chandler Jones, I believe since Chandler Jones, who's now in Arizona, he was with the Patriots, played against him a bunch with the Patriots. I think since he's been in the league, he's got the most sacks in the NFL for any D lineman. So there's a bunch of good ones. And it's funny. Every team in the NFL has got good defensive linemen, maybe different calibers, but they're like running backs. Everybody wants to rush the passer nowadays, and everyone grew up running the ball. There's just so many good players at that position.
Mm-hmm. But I think the most skilled position, going back to offensive line, I think that's where the best athletes are, because you guys are, I mean, you have to be like, in some ways, you're always, your balance has to be on point. You're the smartest guys on the field every time. You know, D linemen just kind of like go.
They go, and they can go any which way they want to. They can pull you down. They can do whatever they want. And we have to be in total control at all times, stay in front of them. We have to essentially, on a pass set, back up, see where they're going to go, and then try and stop what at times was a 350-pound man who I'm blocking at center, their nose guard, then stop him in his tracks. Otherwise, I have a quarterback 3 yards behind me, and I'm going to get right in his lap. So there's a lot of unnatural things about offensive line that you have to just master, these small nuances. And that's often why you'll see young guys come into the league and struggle, and they get better and better as time goes on, because you get more reps against good players and you kind of figure out the position. And when young guys can do it, similar to Quentin Nelson with the Colts, or Zach Martin, what he was able to do with the Cowboys, when young guys can come in and play at a really high level, it's extremely impressive.
So what's a bogus holding call you got?
I don't know, all of them, but no, there's a lot of times where they'll call holding nowadays just because a guy hit the ground. The running back goes by and you dump a guy on the ground, well, they'll just throw a hold on it. And I've talked to the refs about it before, because the refs will come to training camp and they've admitted that they've been instructed that if a guy goes to the ground and it looks like a hold, to call it.
Wow.
I know, but you get the scouting report before games, like the coaches the night before the game will tell you, or at some point during the week of practice will say, hey, this crew is heavy on holding calls. You got to keep your hands inside. If you got a chance to put a guy down, maybe you don't do it this week. Try and keep them up, and that way, they don't get a chance to throw a flag, because a 10-yard holding penalty is so detrimental for a drive.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so here we go to the 2019-1. This is the Bookers. That really is going to be – this is going to be the one that decides which of these two brands wins tonight.
I like it.
I do too. But the question always becomes, just like, so we're basically at a couple of pairs here. In football, there's always a player that can kind of compensate for the weak link on the team. I feel like that Stagg Jr., that first one we tasted, was so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back.
It might propel it over these two. So I'm gonna rinse my mouth out and go to that real quick.
Yeah, I just took a drink of water. I'm gonna go back to it for a second.
Golly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's my number one, honestly. I like the caramel of it. I think it's almost got like a buttery texture or something to it that's really good.
It's so good. I mean, buttery is the right way to put it. Butterscotch, honey butter. I mean, there's just so many flavors in that. And I think this is where things can get difficult. Like I've never really done a pair against a pair like this before, but now we have to figure out. Now we have to hone in. We really, really love that one. Now, do we really dislike the other one to the point where we're going to discount it over the other two? And I think I'm going to say yes for me. I mean, that nose is just too alcohol forward. Sawdust, I keep saying that. and it's just not there on the palate. I mean, it's really, really weak. So that's a bad showing for that brand. Now I'm going to go to.
It's amazing they can be so different with 1 year. It's like what happened in that year weather-wise, because they essentially had how many years was that aged?
So this would be 8. These would both be 8 years old.
8. So 7 of the 8 years they were same climate, likely the same warehouse and all that. It's interesting.
But people want to say bourbon's a lot of science. Man, there's so much we don't know about like why two barrels are so different. But at the same time, they're studying it constantly. And that's one of the things about the pandemic that, scares me, is that we're going to lose some of this like research that's been going on and being funded by tourism. And, this is, I hope that we will continue to see, barrel research about what's going on. But I don't know.
To your point on that, I invested in a company, Roth River, who is developing a bourbon barrel sensor that they want to put on every barrel in every rick house, that would be able to put data onto a cell phone, and you have this big server in each warehouse. So one, it would help them track where all the barrels are in a warehouse and not have to simply look down the line or do it by hand or computer. You could simply do it through Bluetooth on a cell phone, but it would push all the data. Another really interesting thing is it would be able to track the levels of the bourbon so they can see how much they're losing. They have barrels of Pappy down at Buffalo Trace that they'll open them up and they're empty. Well, they'd be able to detect leaks quicker, be able to patch them up, be able to save some of the bourbon. And another thing is when they put away a Pappy 23, they pay full tax on the product in there the entire time. Well, so much of it gets lost in the angel share. If they were able to prove over the time that this sensor could work, they would save millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars of taxes based upon how much bourbon they're losing that they shouldn't be paying tax on. It's a really interesting concept. And another thing, startups during this time, this pandemic, are just getting absolutely crushed right now. So hopefully we'll be able to get through this. But we've had some traction, and there's a lot of people really interested in it because there's so much. There's so much money in data in general right now, but in the bourbon industry, one of the hottest industries in the world based upon global demand, it would be very, very valuable to figure out why exactly this 2018 Stagg Jr. is different from the 2019 Stagg Jr.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I want to learn more about this. I think that was a good investment on your part, Eric, because this is something that they've been battling for years. And, that technology, that's the kind of technology I want to see in bourbon, folks, not this rapid aging bullshit. That is an actual piece of technology that we can apply to the old methods to improve it. That is awesome. I want to learn more about this. Let's connect more about this later on. I feel a story in my bones on this.
Good.
Now you're getting to see me a little bit in my element here of like trying to figure out if I like the Stagg Jr. From 18 more than the two. That much more than the two Bookers. That first Booker's is pretty strong.
It's good. Yeah, that's the one I as well.
I like that Stagg Jr. more than that first Booker's, but it's like really, really close, so it's not overly better. So I think now it's going to depend on that 2019-1. I think I know where I'm going with this, but just going to taste one more time to make sure. And again, this is all work, folks. This is practice. This is work. This is what I'm doing here, for America, Eric.
Well, you got quite a strong following. When I put it on my social media today that I was coming on today, I had a number of people reach out like, "Oh, shoot, you're going on Fred's show. I can't wait to tune in." So the people appreciate the hard work and dedication you put into your craft.
By God, someone's got to do it. I just tasted some moonshine with the Country Star today, Chase Rice. And that's always risky when you do moonshine, but we both actually liked it. And, sometimes you taste things that you don't like, and sometimes you taste some things that you wouldn't taste otherwise unless you were writing a review on it. But
this flavored or just pure grain?
No, this was like legitimate, like made in the hills. Somebody aged it, and like, hey, won't you come on over here and check out my moonshine? And so I took a little quart of it, and it was actually not bad at all, actually.
I won't sell out who it was, but we had a guy on the Bills who would bring a bunch of it up each year. He'd bring about a case of it up, and I would always keep a jar of it in my freezer. And I didn't know this for a while, but everybody. So obviously pregame, I'm in the locker room getting ready for the game, spend the night at the team hotel the night before the game. So I don't see my family and friends, but we would have these huge groups coming in for Bills games. And to digress a touch, once someone came for one Bills game, they would come year after year after year. So by the time I retired, we would have between 12 and 20 people a game generally, sometimes more than that. Well, they would all take a swig of this moonshine that said player would bring up with them from the southern part of the United States. And like, my mother-in-law, who's not a drinker, would do it. And after the game, like, my one rule was, I want to be able to enjoy some beers with you because this is finally my night off. I don't get Friday or Saturday off. Like, Sunday night, I'm able to have a few drinks. Like, don't be drunk after the game. And sometimes they'd say, well, so-and-so got in the moonshine this morning. I'm like, I'm just going to hide it. And you guys think it's a good luck charm. We haven't made the playoffs in 17 years. Like, maybe we stop the moonshine tradition.
That's funny. I love that moonshine's making a way in the Bills locker room. If it was coming from North Carolina or Virginia, chances are it's pretty good because they have like, what's that?
Came from Tennessee.
Came from Tennessee. Okay, yeah. So that would be one of the states that be like, all right, but there's. It's kind of like branding, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, a little bit Georgia, stay away from Alabama. But those states typically have some good shine. I was on that show, Moonshiners, that's on Discovery.
Really?
I've been on that a couple times, and I've actually learned to like the legitimate people, like trying to like, and I don't know why. I mean, I think they could actually make more money if they went legal. But I've actually come to appreciate those people who make illegal whiskey out of whatever it is they make it out of, because it's actually, they do a good job and they understand the skills that it takes to make it. The fact of the matter is they mostly get shot or get hurt themselves or go to jail, and just don't make moonshine. It's not smart, but.
Right. I don't know what the margins look like on it either, but probably hard to sell in mass quantities.
Yeah, but if you live out there in the boondocks and that's what you want to do, it's your way of life, then I suppose moonshine beats making meth.
No doubt.
So, Eric, I don't know where you're leaning here, but I love that Stagg Jr., the 126.4 proof, just absolutely gorgeous. But I'm not so sure that this thing is overtaking. I don't think it's strong enough to overtake the massive quality between the two Bookers. So my vote is that we crown Bookers tonight as the winner over Stagg Jr. How do you feel?
Yeah, I don't want to ride both sides of the fence, simply because I'm buddies with Freddie No, and I also have buddies that are pretty high up at Buffalo Trace, and they let me come pick out my own barrel of Blanton's, and I hope to keep those going in the future. But To me, it just kind of depends what you're looking for, because the one Stagg we have is the number one. So if I can cherry pick a bottle, we talked about being responsible with your drinking. Generally, when I'm having a bourbon, I'm going to have one or two, and it's at a nice dinner. We have a buddy over, and it's funny. I have bottles of Pappy Van Winkle at my house. I have really nice bottles of Jim Beam brands, and someone was like, "Can we have one of those?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "You ever have Pappy Van Winkle before? Have you ever had the Eagle Rare 17 Blue Label?" And they'll say no, but then they'll look it up and see how expensive it is. And I say, "But this was an ordinary night, and you'll remember that night forever now, because it was the first time you tried it." And so for me, it's open up anything. But for me, if I can get a bottle of specifically of the 126 Stagg, I mean, that was my number one by a pretty good margin. The other Stagg was by far my least, and the other two were very consistent. So if you're going to the liquor store and you're picking out a bottle, I'd say Booker's might maybe be the safer choice. But for me, if I can cherry pick it, I'm taking that Stagg all day.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, that Stagg Jr. is definitely the winner of the night in terms of a single bottle. As the couples go with the grouping, the Bookers as a little bit more consistent. And I will say that the Bookers team that picks their creates these batches, this is probably one of the more curated products that are on the market consistently. And I thought those two together were really, really good. The Stagg Jr. is great. So I think that's the way to look at it. And the other one, the other Stagg Jr. is borderline not good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you open another 2019, if it was the exact same taste profile on it. But for those listening, if you've never tried Booker's with a piece of chocolate, I don't know why, or I don't know the exact science behind it. You probably do, but it's phenomenal what it does if you have like a little bit of lingering chocolate taste in your mouth and you have that Booker's. I had brought some Booker's on a plane ride one time early in my career, and this is before I was getting served it in first class, and I had one of my teammates try it with a piece of chocolate, and they were blown away by it. It was fresh off of an off-season tasting I was able to do down at Jim Beam, so it wasn't like my own independent research. I was told to do that, and they were blown away by it. So if you haven't tried that, give it a shot.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know you've got kids to put to bed tonight, and I've got to get this. So we're recording this now to be shown live here in about 30 minutes. And I want to make sure that everybody can go follow you, because you're very active. You didn't just retire and go off and into the sunset. I mean, you're staying in football. You're in the ACC network. I mean, who knows? Maybe in 10 years you're in Monday Night Football. I mean, you've got that kind of trajectory. So tell everybody what you're doing these days.
I appreciate that. And thank you so much for not doing this live. I know we had originally agreed to do it live at 9 p.m., but it works out way better for me to help with bath time and all that here in a few minutes at our house. So I truly appreciate it.
That's awesome.
We have a 4 and a 2-year-old at home, and my wife is the star, and so many moms are during this quarantine time. They didn't all know that they were going to end up being stay-at-home school teachers this year and all that, and daycare and whatever else they had to take over all the duties for. But I'm on social media at ewood70. I have a podcast called What's Next with Eric Wood. It's kind of been my journey out of the NFL, learning from a wide range of people, whether they're retired NFL or pro baseball players. We have pastors, we have business leaders, we have country music singers. We kind of have the wide variety, kind of like how I could like to keep my company. I like a wide range of buddies and learn from everybody. So hopefully you'll tune into that. But this has been a pleasure, Fred, and looking forward to tuning into a lot more episodes now.
Right on, man. Well, be safe out there. Everybody go check out Eric. Incredible dude. And this is going to be the last time we drink a little bourbon together. You know what? I'm running low on the Stagg Jr. I'm going to pour some and toast you virtually, my friend. Cheers.
Pleasure to meet you.
Indeed. All right, so everybody, that was a fantastic interview. I really, really hope you enjoyed that. I found that Eric was just a great guy, great to talk with, and that was the first time that we had ever, met. We've emailed and done some Instagramming back and forth, but that was the first time we'd ever communicated, and I thought we hit it off. I mean, I'm watching this. That was my first time to record from Skype, I believe, with that particular setup. And I'm looking at it, and it really shrunk it down. And I was very disappointed with Skype with that. So lesson learned, because as you can see here, it's much more crisp, it's more genuine, it's real. So Skype, you lost me. That's the last time I'm doing Skype for an interview on something like that. So, but the audio was good. So I'm glad you all got to tune in on that. I hope that you enjoy these interviews. I've actually got some really key musicians coming up. I'm also trying to get more players. I'm just getting interesting people and having back and forth with, and just talking, drinking whiskey, talking about life. I'm not trying to be me when I do these interviews where I try to break it down. I'm really more in an interview moment. If the guest wants to learn more about the whiskey, absolutely, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them how, to learn more about it. But at the same time, it's my goal just to get just enough of the whiskey, but learn more about the person and learn more about where they kind of come from and all that. So it's a fun way. It's a fun interview style. And I'm hoping, get this, guys, get this. I'm hoping I can do like more of a variety show where I have an intro with music, got the interview, and we have the tasting. So I'm hoping I can start pulling something off like that, like once a week. And you know what? Why not? We got nothing but time on our hands. And this is a community that you guys motivate me more than you can possibly know. And I'm having an absolute blast with this. I'm having an absolute blast. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. Please press that subscribe button if you haven't already. Click the like button if you like. And, on the members only channel, we're going to do a bonus section. So I'm very fortunate that YouTube gave me the privilege to have a members only channel. And so we're going to be going to that afterward for the after party. Now, tomorrow night, we have the next episode of the Curation Desk. That time is actually going to be changing. I'm going to be shifting that to the right to 10 o'clock. That was going to be airing at 10 o'clock because Bourbon Pursuit is going to be having a live stream, and I never want to interfere with any of the live streams that from Bourbon Pursuit, because Bourbon Pursuit is part of something that I do, and I want to make sure that everybody gets to see both at the same time. So make sure to stick around 10 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to have Stephen Fonte from Limestone Branch, and in the members only area, we'll have an after party with my wife, who will probably be bitching at me for. She basically found out that I've been hiding the bookers from her for about 4 years. So all the office is filled with the bookers, and she found out about that in the last couple of days. She was not happy, and I say bitching, but she wasn't bitching. She was giving me shit. She's giving me shit. So that should be very interesting to see, how I survive, if I survive at all, to see tomorrow. But I kid. Anyway, everybody, going on over to the members only side, I'm going to put that one more time if you'd like to join us tonight. I put that in the YouTube chat. I just put the I just put that in the members chat, so you can click that and join if you like. Otherwise, I'm heading over there. I hope to see you there. And if not, have a great evening. Be safe. Don't lick handrails. Don't lick trash cans. And remember, this is really important. Vodka sucks unless it's being used for hand sanitizer. Cheers, everybody. Be safe out there.